All right, so let's get into these hearings. Today, I don't know how far into the hearings they'll get today. But the way this works is they open up with statements from all the committee chairs, or I should say members of the Judiciary Committee. Gives you a little bit of insight as to where this is going. Largely a waste of time. However, what we saw the Democrats do, and it's good. I mean, the key here, remember, is convincing folks like Manchin, McCaskill, Doug Jones, Heidkamp, and Donnelly to vote against Kavanaugh. And then to go on to deal with the Collins or Murkowski, but it is looking like the reports are that Collins had basically signed off on Kavanaugh before he was even nominated. That she gave buy-in. This is secondhand reporting. I don't know how accurate it is. I do know there's a fund that has almost $250,000 now that has been pledged to be spent against Collins in Maine if she votes for Kavanaugh. I imagine there's a lot more money coming from another direction to offset that. But here are the Democrats making their first attempt. And again, this is, I think, smart in the context of those red state senators, Democrats, because they're making a non-ideological argument, which is ultimately that we don't have enough documents on this guy. But here is the start. And this is a long clip where the Democrats try and postpone the Kavanaugh confirmation hearings. About 40,000 pages of documents were delivered to Democratic senators last night. Even Matt Leck could not read that quickly. Here's the way the committee hearing started, and you're going to hear a lot of protesters in the background as well.
And there you go. Senator Chuck Grassley, let's listen in.
On the nomination of
Mr.
Judge
Chairman.
Brett Kavanaugh
Mr. Chairman.
to serve as Associate Justice.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to be recognized for a question before we proceed.
This is Kamala Harris.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to be recognized to ask a question before we proceed. The committee received just last night, less than 15 hours ago, 42,000 pages of documents that we have not had an opportunity to review or read or analyze.
You're out of order. I'll proceed.
We cannot possibly move forward, Mr. Chairman.
I extend a very warm welcome
we have not
to
been
Judge
given
Kavanaugh,
an opportunity to have a meaningful
his wife,
hearing
Ashley,
on this nominee.
Their two daughters.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with my colleague Senator Harris. Mr. Chairman, we received 42,000 documents that we haven't been able to review last night, and we believe this hearing should be postponed.
I know this is an exciting day for all of you here,
Mr. Chairman,
and you're rightly proud.
Mr. Chairman, if we cannot be recognized, I move to adjourn.
The American people.
Mr. Chairman, I move to adjourn.
This is Blumenfeld.
From Judge Kavanaugh later this afternoon.
Mr. Chairman, I move to adjourn. Mr. Chairman, we have been denied real access to the documents we need to advise.
Mr. Chairman, regular order is called for.
Which turns this hearing into a charade and a mockery of our norms.
Well,
and Mr. Chairman, I therefore move to adjourn this hearing.
Okay.
This is a mockery and a travesty of justice. This is a travesty of justice. We will not go back. Cancel Brett Kavanaugh. Adjourn the hearing.
And that's protesters. Pause it. Now, you got to appreciate that Kavanaugh at this point is just like, he's just telling himself over and over again, look like a good guy, look like a good guy, look like a good guy, look like a good guy. There is no doubt in my mind that his media preparers it basically told him, like, in these situations, just repeat this mantra. Maybe it's not like look like a good guy. It's just like, say the name of your kids over and over again or something to that effect. And basically what's happening here is the Democrats want the hearing stopped because these documents were delivered so late. Now, Also note that even with the delivery of these documents, there are still hundreds of thousands of extant documents. This guy was in the Bush administration for an extended period of time. None of those documents are being released. And it's completely, I mean, you know, to say norms sounds silly, but this is what...
like, those should be available for the public, and the idea that the Congress can't even see them is pretty out there, it seems like.
Yep. All right, continue.
Command order. Chuck. There's a motion to adjourn.
We're not in executive session.
Mr. Chairman, I ask for a roll call vote on my motion to adjourn.
Now, pause it for 1 second. Now, my understanding is that a motion to adjourn has basically, what do you call it, precedence or priority, that it must be addressed. And so that's why Blumenthal is pushing this. And you could hear Leahy talking to Grassley, like, you got to do that, you got to have this vote, et cetera, et cetera. Continue.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move to adjourn. I ask for a roll call vote.
We're not in executive session. We will continue as planned.
Mr. Chairman, may I be recognized, sir? Mr. Chairman, I appeal to the chair to recognize myself or one of my colleagues.
You're out of order.
Mr. Chairman, I appeal to be recognized on your sense of decency and integrity. Even the documents you have requested, Mr. Chairman, even the ones that you said, the limited documents you have requested, this committee has not received. And the documents we have, you, sir, have labeled committee confidential. They should be transparent. This committee, sir, is a violation of even the values I've heard you talk about time and time again. The ideals that we should have. What is the rush? What are we trying to hide by not having the documents out front? What is with the rush? What are we hiding by not letting those documents come out? Sir, this committee is a violation of the values that we as a committee have striven for, transparency. We are rushing through this process in a way that is unnecessary. And I appeal for the motion to at least be voted on.
Mr. Chairman.
At least let's have a vote, because when we wrote you a letter on August 24th
Senator.
asking to have a meeting on this issue, you denied us even the right to meet. So here we are having a meeting. Let's at least debate this issue. Let's at least call this for a vote. I appeal to your sense of fairness and decency, your commitments that you've made to transparency. This violates what you have even said and called for, sir. You've called for
even your low standard,
you yourself,
Chuck.
limited documents. We thought there should be more. We have not received the documents that you have even called for. So, sir, based upon your own principles, your own values, I call for at least to have a debate or a vote on these issues and not for us to rush through this process.
Pause it. Now, what you could hear a tapping throughout that is Chuck Grassley slowly banging his gavel.
Blood from a stone, darling.
There's, look, this is theater to a large extent, but to a large extent, that's what hearings are. And they're competitive theater. It's like theater sports, but sometimes not as funny, although I've seen some pretty bad theater sports performances as well. All right, continue.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator,
Mr. Chairman,
Senator,
I've heard calls for
I'd like to
regular
respond.
order.
I'd like to respond to Senator Booker. Senator Booker, I think that I respect very much a lot of things you do, but you spoke about my decency and you spoke about my decency and integrity, and I think you are taking advantage of my decency and integrity. So.
What?
Oh, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Nobody could do such a thing. It's okay.
Now, does this go on? Do we have more? Okay, because what you're watching at the very least is a half a dozen or so of the Democrats on the judiciary, and I think there's 9 total. And Hirono comes up next. Maybe there's 10 total. You're watching them work in coordination at least. Dianne Feinstein came and sort of put a little bit of damper on things. Which, if I was Kevin DeLeon right now, I would be talking about. My entire comms team would be putting out, what is Dianne Feinstein doing? And at the very least, you're seeing them in a coordinated effort to convince those red state Democrats that the procedure is messed up, right? Because that's the only way they're going to stop this process, is to make it on procedural grounds as opposed to ideological grounds. And so at least there is some effort being made here. I don't know that there's much that can happen because of the Moon and Lake Michigan principle. None of this is real, and you're all imagining it.
But you're cowards.
Right. But this is the reality of where we're at this point. Then we see Dick Durbin at these Kavanaugh hearings. Again, this is all from basically the opening. Once things start moving, Dick Durbin then chimes in with another element, right? We've heard from members of the committee who are complaining about the lack of documents, complaining about the delivery of the documents. I mean, the idea that you'll get 40,000 documents delivered 12 hours before the hearing seems rather transparently an attempt to say, we delivered the documents. If you didn't read them, it was your fault because you don't...
That's how I used to turn in my homework in college.
Exactly. But here's Dick Durbin reminding people that Neil Gorsuch should not be on this, or if anybody should be sitting in that seat, it should be Neil Gorsuch, because Neil Gorsuch should not have been able to fulfill the slot that Merrick Garland should have filled.
Mr. Chairman, we waited for more than a year with a vacancy on the Supreme Court under the direction of your leader in the United States Senate, and the Republic survived. I think the treatment was shabby of Merrick Garland and President Obama's nominee. The fact that we cannot take a few days or weeks to have a complete review of Judge Kavanaugh's record is unfair to the American people. It's inconsistent with our responsibility under Article 2, Section 2 of the Constitution to advise and consent on Supreme Court nominees.
Again, this is all about making the case to those red state Democrats that procedurally this is messed up. And look, here's the bottom line. There's no political scientist who would suggest that any of these red state Democrats are going to pay a price for stopping this nomination. I mean, you could also just look, case in point, to what the Republicans did in regards to Merrick Garland. They paid no price to even avoiding having hearings.